Hello, fellow Toolboxers. Thanks for joining us today. Episode number 340. We're going to have an interview with Barney Fyman, a great attorney in Europe who has a practice over there, U.S. bar, but practicing over there, discussing how he got into it to practice overseas. Very, international offices is a very fun thing to do. A lot of us want to have that kind of virtual experience. Although he's not virtual there, he's a full firm, but it's good to know how to do it and how it is outside the U.S. We're also going to discuss the Rome District Conference that's coming up. The RDC is coming up quick. It's one of the best conferences there. I wish I could go every year, but unfortunately, I'm tied down a little bit. But once things open up, it's going to be an excuse to go on a really good vacation and do all the fun stuff they do at the RDC conference. So it's definitely something to check out. If you have the time, I think it's coming up. When I ask you, I think it's like October or something like that. So it's coming up quick. Having said that, our marriage immigration court is popping. It's been like going strong. 18 plus hours of recording, plus regular office hours and handouts and samples, all this kind of stuff, and mentorship to get you on the road to becoming a U.S. immigration lawyer. So if you're thinking about switching here, you've already been practicing immigration law, even learn by the book on basically the INA, the CFR, learn about cases and how to actually analyze, get proper guidance on 212 inadmissibility, 245 adjustment, all that kind of stuff. Learn it the best way possible. Email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox. Learn about that, info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com. Also, we have a bunch of CLEs, some new ones. We just did one about, green card holders being absent from the U.S. over 10 years, how to get them back in. We have another one from a top RDC member that's popping right now about the 212D waiver, how to do that. That's a whole niche right there. And I think we're recording another one about people in removal proceedings adjusting. I'm trying to set that one together, plus another one. So a lot of good info. Those are free for all lawyers. All you got to do, if you're not already a member of our Circle.so community page, is to email me at info@immigrationlawyerstoolbox.com with your bar info, so I know you're a lawyer, and you'll get access to hours and hours of hardcore CLEs that do it the way I do. Ask really good questions, not generic stuff that leaves you hungry for more. It really goes through all this stuff. Having said all that, anything we discuss right now is not intended for individual legal guidance. Please consult an immigration attorney, but y'all knew that already. Let's go. Hey, Barney, thank you so much for coming on the show. Barney, is it Barney Fyman?
Yes, that's correct.
Well, thanks for coming on. You're an ALA member and you practice overseas, so that's always really interesting to see how that came about. Can you let us know your background, where you grew up, how you got into immigration law, and how you developed a practice outside the U.S.?
Well, certainly. I'm from New York, and I went to law school in New York and started working for a law firm in Manhattan in the General Motors building. But after about 4 or 5 years, me and my wife decided to relocate. My wife is from Sweden, so that's was the reason why we moved to Sweden when we left the U.S. Wanted to get into law again, but had to go back to law school. So I did law school, take 2 in Gothenburg, Sweden. And then I was finished with my Swedish law degree in 94. And then I was up and running again. My background's really been commercial law, both in the US and then originally here in Sweden. It was sort of late in life that I decided, hey, it would be great to do some kind of law that touches on the U.S.
Yeah.
And when you're overseas, immigration law is the law you can do. So I got into immigration law about 5 years ago, and it's been a growing part of my practice ever since.
And it's a great area. A lot of people just kind of fall into it, not expecting it, myself included. But then you're like, oh, this is really fun and interesting. The people are really cool. What part of Sweden are you in?
I live in a city called Borås, which is about 70 kilometers east of Gothenburg. Gothenburg's the second city, and that's on the west coast.
European quoting kilometers and stuff like that. So you're really on the Swedish mindset.
I've been living here too long to think in miles and inches.
Yeah, I hear you. And how was the switch of not switch, but getting visas and stuff there as compared to how you see the headaches coming to the U.S.? How difficult? I mean, you had a spouse, so it's probably more streamlined, or how hard was it?
Yeah, well, I practice both U.S. immigration, also Swedish immigration. I can definitely say Swedish immigration is so much easier. A lot has to do with the agency. It's a very accessible agency to work with. The rules are a little bit easier to follow. They're simpler. But for me, if you're married to a Swedish person, then family-based immigration is sort of just like it is going into the U.S. little simpler, a little quicker, but basically, if you're married to a Swedish citizen or a permanent resident, then you can get a visa to stay here, which is what I did. But now I'm a Swedish citizen as well.
And this, I was intending to ask a question, but it's kind of political. But there was a massive, movement of people, even the Middle East and stuff in Sweden, that caused some demographic changes potentially. I'm not sure all the details. Has there been any pushback or changes in the last couple of years to tighten up immigration, or is it still the same it's been for the last 10, 20 years?
No, by all means, push back, trying to tighten up immigration. And the way they've done it, in two ways, actually. People seeking asylum get more temporary residence permits, and then they're reviewed after 2 years to see if there's still grounds for asylum status. The other way they're tackling it or going about it is work-based immigration. They're raising the amount that you need to earn to be able to support yourself. So basically, what the movement is trying to just make it difficult for people without any higher education to get a work-based permit. So yeah, that's sort of been two results of the big immigration wave from a couple of years ago.
I think just like last Friday or something, Prime Minister Trudeau of Canada also said we're tightening it up. Only people with higher education stuff is going to be able to come. So there's this constant like a pendulum swinging when it comes to immigration. You see over the years that just goes one way or another. And so with your firm, you do kind of commercial stuff as well. That's local. But what kind of immigration cases do you do?
Mainly business immigration, both to the U.S. and also coming into Sweden.
And does that include like L's, E's, perm, like everything, or do you kind of like niche down in those?
Not perm. No, what we do is basically mainly E's and L's, O's and P's. But pretty much the bread and butter of the firm's immigration practice is waivers for people who want to go in on visa or B1 or B2 visas.
Oh, interesting.
A lot of people with a little bit of cannabis in the background, and they don't come in on ESTA. So that's pretty much the biggest volume, really. People calling up. I'm not eligible for ESTA. I had a small amount of cannabis in my back pocket 5 years ago. So now I need a waiver. So that's pretty much it.
And actually, I did a CLE with Daniel Parisi, another RDC member, about this, just wave an hour about this. And he's got a niche practice that essentially focuses on that as well. In Europe, it seems it's like there's so much travel that needs to happen between the two regions that it's like a whole thing. And I'm guessing how friendly are they? Like in Sweden, when you're doing it, do you just do it for really Sweden, or does it come out to like all these different kinds of consulates?
No, just Sweden. My practice so far has only been limited to the embassy in Stockholm.
How, like, if someone does a tourist visa interview, how likely is it that they'll accept even a waiver, or they always down to at least accepting the waiver request, or how does it work out?
It's very difficult to get a waiver. The waivers that I've been successful in arranging, or clients that have gotten a waiver, it's always been business related non-immigrant visas, like an E2 employee. There you get a little bit more flexibility at the embassy, but if you just want to go into the US to visit Disneyland, it's almost mission impossible.
Yeah, I have a client who I got their marriage green card, and the mom essentially has a permanent bar, and 10 years have passed, but they're like, they still need a waiver. And like, well, should we do a tourist visa and request a waiver? I'm like, they're from Mexico. I'm like, it's probably not going to happen. If you want to spend the money and time, do it. But I just got to tell you ahead of time, I can't accept that case, because the chances of, or if I do have to, she's had a disclaimer that says, it's probably not going to happen just to come and visit family, because they're going to assume you're going to come, you're not going to leave, or they're not going to even bother wanting to look at a waiver. But it's necessary, again, in these business kind of cases.
Yes. Yeah, business is a little bit more leeway there, but the people who have a criminal record, even though they're very minor offenses, and they get a slap on the wrist in court. And Sweden's not known for being liberal when it comes to narcotics. Sweden is not Holland, but even though they get like basically a slap on the wrist in court, it's still going to be no waiver. You're not getting it. the U.S.
Yeah, people underestimate how strict U.S. Visa laws are. That's the number one thing. It's like people think, oh, I'll just fill up the DS-160. I'll go talk with them. Like, no, no, no. That's not been.
No.
This is hardcore. It's like going to prison. You got to go through lines and signing this, signing that, interviews. It's crazy.
Yes, and a lot of people are very misled or confused about this system in Sweden, where a lot of crimes get expunged. They sort of get
Yeah.
erased from your rap sheet after 5 years. Um, but I explained to them that doesn't mean you can say no to the drug offense or criminal record question on the ESTA or on the DS-160. That's a little hard for them to understand. They think Sweden considers it, over and done with after 5 years. Why is it still a problem for me to get into the U.S.?
That ESTA is especially an issue because people think that it's been expunged or deleted or something. Then they fill out the ESTA incorrectly, and then they come to me for adjustment status, and I have to really dig in. I'm like, well, wait a minute, like it doesn't matter for ESTA. You did misrep right there, and so now there's a waiver need. Who knows if you get a waiver, how long it's going to take? It's always like a painful thing when that pops up. I'm like, oh no, why did
Yeah,
why did you do that? And you'd be
it is.
surprised. I had one guy came to me like this. He had been to prison for in Northern Europe. Let's just say, I don't want to get too specific, but for like 5 years for doing some like armed robbery or something. And he just didn't say it on the S application. He'd been coming back and forth with this. CBP never knew. And I'm like, is there information sharing? They could have caught this guy at the border, but he was coming and going. No one was the wiser that he had a massive, prison history in the last 10 years. So I'm like, I thought these computers, it just shows the inconsistency of the CEP computer system. Sometimes they're connected and they get the info, sometimes they don't. It's just super inconsistent.
True.
So now the RDC conference is coming this year. Where is it going to be at?
It's going to be in Copenhagen, Denmark, right next door to where I'm living, and it'll be on the content part of the program. It's going to be Monday and Tuesday, the 28th and the 29th of October.
Okay.
But we're kicking things off with a cocktail reception that you don't want to miss, and that'll be Sunday, October 27th in the evening.
Wonderful. I got to get this. I wanted to get this interview in as soon as possible, give people some time if they weren't aware of it. Those are always like one of the best conferences. Other than AILA National, I would say RDC is like up there is like the ones that are really fun and interesting. Are there any embassy visits this time around? Were you able to connect with the consulate or the embassy there?
Yes, we're hoping to have a visit by the consular section from the embassy in Copenhagen. They have said that they will attend the conference, and we do have a slot for them to address the attendees. Just a little bit of a caveat when it comes to embassy personnel. It's always subject to change at the last minute, but we do have it on the agenda.
Mm-hmm.
So we are hoping.
Any particular panels of interest that are coming up on this one?
Oh yes, a bunch of stuff that we're really excited about. Well, we have the hot topics, but that's more or less a staple of the conferences. But this time around, we're also going to be putting some focus on Africa and what's new and exciting in consular practice in Africa. It's a region that we really haven't addressed in prior conferences, but we're doing it this time. Another exciting panel is going to look at influencers and esports. Do these individuals fall into O visa, P visa? Who are these people? So that's going to be an interesting panel. And another interesting one that we think is going to be starting and operating in international practice. Let's say you want to relocate to Europe, John, and you want to continue operating your immigration practice that's currently in California. What are the pitfalls? What are the things you have to think about? So it's going to sort of be a global look at immigration practice.
Yeah, that's a dream. A lot of immigration lawyers I talk about, like I've made my own practice where I don't have to show up for anything. It's all done by mail and uploading and stuff. So I could, once the kids get a little bit bigger and we could travel, then be able to have a portable office. That's my long-term plan. And so that's gonna be interesting. Are they gonna have recordings of this for people that can't show up to purchase recordings?
I don't know, tell you the truth. I'm on the planning committee, but we have not addressed that yet. So I
Sure.
don't know what the ILA policy is.
Yeah, the tech stuff is so complicated.
I I tend to doubt it. Because there has not been any talk about
Mhm.
recording equipment, so I tend to doubt it. So I think if you need if you want to get the content, I think you'll have to come to Copenhagen.
It should be a good time. Two notes. One is growing Africa processing is really important. I've got a growing practice of like Nigerian, Kenyan, South African, even Ghana and stuff are happening. And they have their own nuanced issues of things where they'll have problems with. There's marriage and divorce issues that pop up where sometimes they just don't know that divorce isn't finalized for a second one. Multiple marriages in the past. There's all sorts of weird stuff. Not weird per se, but just different culture.
Mhm.
That's not a good way to put it. But then just the delays right now, like in Nigeria or Kenya, I've like cases stuck over a year for U.S. citizen spouse cases, over even almost 2 years where no interviews
Mhm.
are happening. It's very frustrating. But one last question I would ask from you is, when it comes to E2s in Sweden, what timelines are you seeing and be able to get an interview at all with them? How's the backlog with just getting an interview scheduled?
Well, their websites are always saying about 4 months, and the more or less auto answer you get when you submit the documents is our processing time is approximately 4 months. I don't believe it. I think it's closer to 6 months.
Oh,
And
wow.
then the interview times have gotten a lot better. So the interview can go pretty quickly. I'm talking about roughly about 14 days, and then you can get an interview slot.
That's interesting. It's good to know. And how complicated are the page number systems for them and stuff? Are they really limited, or are they open ended to how much you can
No,
submit?
it's tough. A lot, I spend a lot of time
That's
trying to zip file and compromise or make things more compact. And then I'm still over the limit. That's a problem. That's a problem.
That's
Uh,
a funny, like when E2 lawyers is always like that's just the bane of your existence of like how do you shove 1,000 pages into 10 pages and then like all the games you got to play. And I'm like, it makes it hard for them to, I don't know, it's just a weird system that they have for this. I understand some people might overdo it and it makes it hard for them, but the fact that there's no consistency in all the consoles for this and each have their own rules and different systems, it's just so annoying, frankly, that it's like this for people that are
yeah,
investing
it
so much
is.
money and time for the clients, us, everybody.
Because it is very unsatisfying to be in a position where you really want to advocate for your client and you really think they have a strong case for an e-registration and you want to show that evidence, but you're forced to delete files that you think are relevant and probative, but you're forced to delete them and hope that you still have enough remaining. But it's
Yeah.
a little unfortunate, unsatisfying. Yes, it is.
Oh, U.S. immigration is always it's even you wouldn't think that was a problem. Like just like file size would be something you're like pull your hair out of and spending hours on trying to fix. But even if you hand it off to a paralegal, to a certain extent, you gotta see choose documents. At the end of the day, it's your decision. So you got to get heavily involved in picking and choosing.
Mhm.
So it takes so much time to do it. Well, Barney, thank you so much for coming on the show. If someone want to reach out to you, what's the best way they could do that?
Um, email. Just go to primalaw.se. Primalaw, like PRIMALAW.se, like S Sam
Mhm.
E Edward. And then you'll find me.
I bet a lot of our colleagues are going to try to do E2s to come over there, use the reciprocity and get out of the US and have some fun in Sweden over there to practice. Thank you so
That's
much for
right.
coming on. Come on, stick around for a couple of minutes while I end the show and we'll talk offline. But thanks again for coming.
Okay. Thank you so much, John.